This morning I woke up as usual. I was getting ready for work, my mind still half asleep. I stepped outside, and suddenly everything around me vanished. My Mercedes A200 drenched in cement. Not just damaged, not scratched or smashed, it was as if someone had buried it under a thick gray tomb. The hood, the windshield, the roof, all frozen in a stony trap. I stepped closer, running my hand over the rough, cold surface. This wasn't an accident. This was a calculated act of malice. I looked around. The street was silent. No movement, no one watching, no one peeking through curtains. But I knew this was no coincidence. I took a deep breath. I already had an idea who might be behind it, but to fully understand, I had to go back a few days. I hadn't lived in this neighborhood for long. At first, everything seemed peaceful, but within weeks, I realized not everyone was happy about my presence. And that's when I first met her, Karen, the HOA president. I walked outside one morning, ready for work, and there she was. She stood next to my Mercedes A200 in the driveway, wearing that look, disapproval, as if I'd just committed some unforgivable crime. Karen was the queen of our block, and while she had power, it didn't make her any more pleasant. Her gaze always carried that entitlement, like she had the right to dictate how everyone lived.
"You're parking wrong,"
she said, not even bothering with a greeting. I stopped, glanced at my car, then back at her. But what really struck me, her own car was parked the exact same way, just a little farther up her driveway. She was doing the very thing she was accusing me of. The hypocrisy was unreal. "This is my driveway, and I park here because it's my right," I shot back, irritation creeping into my voice. Karen noticed me eyeing her car, and her expression hardened.
"This violates HOA rules. Our neighborhood has parking standards and your behavior doesn't meet them."
Her tone had turned venomous. I looked at her car, then at mine, and smirked. "Seriously? Your car is parked the same way on your driveway. That's rich. If your rules are so strict, why don't you follow them?" For a second, Karen froze. She clearly hadn't expected me to call her out.
"My car is here temporarily, but your parking is disruptive. I've warned you before. Everyone's tired of your behavior."
I gave her a dry smile, though I wasn't in the mood for games. "I park on my own property. It doesn't bother anyone. If you don't like it, take it up with whoever you want. But this is my driveway, and I have every right to park here." Karen's jaw clenched. She glared at me and hissed,
"I won't let this go until you change your ways."
I didn't answer, just turned and walked away, leaving her fuming. It was another reminder. Karen wanted to control everything and everyone, but I knew one thing. I wasn't backing down. I stepped out of the house, already late for work. The sun had just risen, and everything seemed normal until I saw the sight that froze me in place. A tow truck was parked next to my car, the operator just getting ready to haul it away. My reaction was instant. "Stop! What the hell are you doing?" Vehicles being impounded at the request of local administration. "I'm not violating anything. This is my driveway. You can't just take my car. This is private property." "We got orders," he shrugged. "This is illegal." My voice sharpened. "I park on my own damn driveway. If the HOA has a problem, they can take me to court, not steal my car." The operator exchanged a look with his partner, then sighed. "Fine, fine. Your right's your driveway." Then I saw her, Karen. Watching from the sidewalk, her lips pressed into a thin line. When she realized her plan had failed, she raised her brows and muttered,
"Fine. If you want your car to stay here so badly, it can stay."
With that, she turned and walked away, leaving me standing there in temporary victory. But I knew better. Karen wasn't done. The morning started as usual. Silence, the first rays of sunlight barely touching the windowsill. I woke up, stretched, yawned, still unaware that this day would bring me the worst surprise. As usual, I got dressed, had my coffee, and, unsuspecting, headed for the door. Stepping outside, I didn't immediately realize that something was wrong. The street was quiet as usual, but when I turned my head and saw my car, my heart froze. My Mercedes A200 was parked in its usual spot, but it looked nothing like it used to. It was covered in cement. No, this couldn't have been some random accident or a bad joke. This was an act of complete destruction. My car was covered in a thick layer of cement, from the hood to the roof and windshield. The gray concrete layer looked like a solid mass hardening directly on the car, making it completely unusable. This wasn't even like a normal prank. This was a crime, and I couldn't believe someone could do such a thing. I took a few steps toward the car, trembling from shock. My fingers carefully touched the cement, which was cold and hard as stone. The sensation was disgusting. I wondered who could have done this, but in a moment, my thoughts led me to the obvious conclusion. Karen. She was the only person who had been bothering me lately, and now I had no doubt that she was behind all of this. Her constant complaints about my parking, threats with the tow truck, her hypocrisy. It all led to this moment. She was willing to go to extremes to prove she was right. I looked around. The street was empty. No one was in sight. Everyone was either still sleeping or going about their business while I stood before the destruction that someone had deliberately caused. I sighed deeply, feeling frustration and anger mix inside me. What was I supposed to do now? How could this even happen? And most importantly, what would I do about Karen? I already knew I wouldn't stop and would not let this go without consequences. This can't be left like this, I thought. And immediately, my mind raced, realizing everything up until this point was leading to the next steps. I looked again at my destroyed car, as if it were a challenge. I pulled out my phone and dialed the police without hesitation. Every word came out strained, the image of my ruined car still burning in my mind, but I forced myself to stay calm. My car has been deliberately vandalized. It's covered in cement. I have security footage showing exactly who did it. I want to press charges. Minutes later, 2 officers arrived. I met them beside the cement-encased Mercedes and immediately pulled up the surveillance video. The footage was crystal clear. Karen standing next to a cement truck, directing the workers as they poured concrete over my car. She hadn't even bothered to hide. This was done in full view of the cameras. The officers watched in silence. Then one turned to me, his expression grim. This is clear-cut property destruction. We can't ignore something this blatant. They took my statement, reviewed the footage again, and exchanged a few quiet words. Then one of them nodded. "We have enough for an arrest. This is a serious offense. We'll take her in now." Minutes later, Karen was hauled out of her house, her face twisted in outrage. She sputtered protests, but her words were gibberish. Nothing could undo what the video showed. I stood there watching as the officers led her to the squad car, and for the first time in weeks, I felt peace. This moment had been a long time coming. My Mercedes might be totaled, but at least now, the damage would be paid for. And Karen, she'd finally face consequences.